Hey everyone, welcome to the Nathan Ross Rees Reformer Podcast. Today I'm here with the lovely Kira-Leigh Rule. Now, she's the founder of Bodyform Training. She has an extensive career in Reformer Pilates and has now taken over training new trainers, which is a really exciting field to get into. Not only is she doing that, but she's doing it on a worldwide scale. And today I'm really excited about looking at Kira-Leigh's story, where she started and how she's progressed now onto this new pathway. So thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me all the way from Sydney. I'm very, very honoured to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
I guess I should start from the beginning. I think like how every instructor gets into Pilates is a pretty interesting and very diverse story. Personally, for me, I was an elite gymnast, so I trained a lot of hours, spent a lot of time in physios. Probably, I always joke that I spent more time in a physio clinic and at the gymnastics centre than I did at school and home. But with that, we had such a great team of physios that were working with us, and I unfortunately did have an injury when I was 15 left me with 3 fractures in my spine, which was probably not the nicest. But I would say, ironically, probably the biggest turning point in my life, not to be cliche, but it gave me the exposure to clinical Pilates first. So they put me into a clinical Pilates program where I learnt my core for the first time, which I always joke. I still remember going in and the physio Pilates instructor was like, "You don't have a core." And I remember looking down as, 15-year-old that was like, "Don't tell me what to do." And seeing the 6-pack that we had just from training. And I was like, "What is this?" And she was like, "That's your abs, not your core." And I was like, "What?" I was like, wild. So that was kind of my first exposure to the Pilates world. Honestly, complete rehab through it. And I kind of at that point was like, okay, I am fully on board with the Pilates world and the physio world. And that was where I decided when I finished school to go into Pilates and physio. So I started at university as a physio going through my degree. It's a 4-year degree and you got to make money somehow. So I was like, okay, let me go and get my Pilates certification. And we rolled into COVID and did my training fully online for Mat and Reformer, and then we came out of that first COVID and I started teaching straight away. So got straight into it. I was very fortunate to get into some of the bigger franchises in Australia at that time. I was working for KX and for Vive, which is now Vora Pilates, and really just fell in love with the fitness side of Pilates. I'd had personal experience with the amazing benefits of the clinical side, and to have the opportunity while I was studying to see the fitness world side of Pilates was, amazing. And I felt so lucky. And it was very cool for me as a physio to see clients come to me in a generic large group fitness class and was like, "Oh my gosh, I've been coming to your classes for 3 months and my back pain is just so much better." And in my head, I just had maybe a naive impression that it did have to be super specific rehab, one-to-one setting. And I didn't, until that experience, realize what an amazing benefit even large group class, if structured properly, can actually do for people and their bodies. And so when I finished my university degree and I was a physio, I straight away knew I wasn't going to be a hospital physio. I wasn't going to be a manual all the time physio, massage, needles, whatever treatment method of choice. I knew straight away that I was like, I want to merge these two together, because if you can have a structured plan plus have a tool like Pilates, it can really make a big difference in people's lives. So was very fortunate after graduating to get an opportunity to open up my own clinic and space. So that was where Bodyform brand kind of started. So opened up the first Pilates studio and physio practice in Avalon on the northern beaches of Sydney. And I was 21 at the time, turning 22. Wild experience. Wild. I think I learnt a lot, grew a lot learning about people and people management, from staff to clients. I really think that those initial years of owning that studio created such a big difference in my personal life and my professional life that has led me to where I am today. We had at Bodyform a smaller studio, so it was a bit more boutique studio. We had the clinical equipment in it. So we had 2 reformers, 2 trapeze tables, Cadillacs, 2 wonder chairs and 2 spine correctors. So I wanted to have the opportunity to still have that rehab environment, but I also think that, which everyone will understand, in Sydney, in Australia and the rest of the world, the large group reformer studios are taking over. And there is, which I personally always say to my clients, we are so fortunate in this day and age to have a part of the Pilates world for everybody.
Yep.
There is something for everybody. You just have to find it. And the large group classes, personally, I'll get involved in them any day of the week. Like, you can flog me, put all the springs on, do whatever you want to do. I'm a willing victim. But I do think that as a physio, that isn't a situation that suits everyone.
Yep.
And so I wanted to bring a bit of a fitness-based exposure to Pilates on a smaller scale. So I had the semi-private, private, more rehab route at our studio, and then we had what we call like our fitness equipment group classes. So 6 people in there. It's very strength focused, but you move like a circuit style across the equipment. So you still get more hands-on than you would in a 12, 20 person studio, a bit more tailored if you need for like modifications. So it kind of sat in that middle ground where you can still get a good fitness workout. If you haven't done the studio equipment, go, you'll be humbled. It is really hard. And that was where that was created. And then I have, over that whole period, started social media. You know, I think a lot of instructors do. You start your flows, you enjoy, you know, creating a bit of content here and there. And I was fortunate enough to be able to put my physio hat on and my Pilates hat on and go, okay, what do instructors need? We all pay for our certifications, otherwise you're not an instructor, so you have to be qualified. But what is the gap that I was constantly getting asked by friends, you know, that colleagues, if you want to call them, but friends, whether they were in Sydney or whether they were across Australia, across the world, I was getting messages of, hey, I have a client that has a disc bulge SOS. Oh my gosh, I have a client that's now got to 30 weeks. I have no idea what to do. I was like, what do you mean? And it rattled me for so long. And I was helping and sending messages back because they're my friends and I don't want them to be stressed in their job. Then as my following grew, I was getting random people messaging me being like, help, as a physio, what would you do with this injury? Like, I teach 15 people in a class. Like, I don't know what to do. I just panic. I then realized like 95% of instructors are having these problems. But whether they talk about it or not is a different story. And it's nothing for anyone to be embarrassed of. I realised it was a gap in the current training that was being provided. Not to say that they are not doing their job. It is hard to fit in everything into a qualification. Hence why physio is a 4-year degree. Yeah. You know, like if you want to be a surgeon, you're there for years. Like that's half your life, you know, learning. So it wasn't anyone's fault. There just was not the right education for instructors when it came to not the human body. I think that a lot of education companies really do nail that, but it's in a rote-learned environment. Rote-learned to pass an exam. Yep. Not understanding. So I then started to kind of pivot from my social media to going, okay, how can I help instructors learn? People go to me all the time, why do you give away so much free stuff on Instagram? Like every single post is free information. Like they're like, that's not a good business model. And I'm like, perfect. However, it's not just about money. At the end of the day, if I can make one instructor confident to deal with that one client's going to have a good experience. They might tell 10 people. And all it does is it builds our Pilates industry on a global level better. Because the more people that have positive experiences with Pilates, the better everyone does in the Pilates industry as a whole. If people are having negative experiences, they go out to their, you know, catch up with their friends and say, oh, I did try Pilates, but, you know, the instructor didn't know what to do and it was an awful experience. Now, you might have 5 people at that table, 2 of them have tried Pilates and they liked it, so they're just going to be like, oh, it's just Jill, having another whinge. But you might have 3 people that haven't tried Pilates, heard about it, and go, oh, no, Jill had a terrible experience. I'm not going to put my money into a Pilates class. And then they might go and tell. So it's like the reach beyond, for me, posting a 10-second Instagram video takes no time off my back, but it might be the difference for 3 or 4 people to have that experience with Pilates. So that was where, after I was opening my studio, got back into the groove of running a studio at 23. But by that time, I started to have studios that I used to work at in Sydney see my Instagram content, reach out to me and go, can you come and train our staff? And I was like, me? I was like, what do you want me to do? They were like, well, we have clients with injuries or we have clients with pregnancies, and I don't think as a studio owner my staff feel confident or comfortable managing it. And I was like, okay, absolutely. Like, I've been doing it on social media. I've been sending individual messages to friends. What's to do in front of 15 instructors. So that was where I was really fortunate to have the opportunity for the body form education workshops to start to happen. So we had 3 different workshops. There was an injuries one and a pre and postnatal and a strength training one, where it's all about getting the instructors more confident, knowing that you don't have to know everything. It's not expected to know everything, but I do believe that if you are teaching a class and someone comes in, that body is your responsibility for the next 50 minutes. We're not going to rehab them. You're not expected to rehab them. But you also need to understand that you need to know enough to ensure they can get through that class without getting aggravated or more injured. Scope of practice is important to know that no one is expecting you in a group class of 15 people to magically treat that one person. It's not your scope, it's not your job, but it is your responsibility to ensure you know enough to keep them supported and moving so they're not going to get aggravated. So that was where the workshops happened. Still studios running along in the background, juggling all the hats. And then I had individual instructors reaching out going, wait, but like we're in like USA, like we don't have access to the workshop, or, oh, my studio owner doesn't want to invest because we've just got a whole lot of new reformers, but I want to personally take responsibility to upskill. And I was like, okay, there's a lot of individual instructors that want this knowledge. What can I do? So that was where the online CPD certifications under body form started, was from individual instructors seeing the workshops going, wait, but I want that knowledge. I want more than just the free clips that you're putting on social media. So that was a pretty cool experience, being able to put together and create not a qualification, but more of it was a certification, right? It was allowing the opportunity for people who are already qualified to have access to practical knowledge that they could apply literally to the class in 5 minutes. If someone walked in and they said, I have sciatica, and that instructor just was like, yeah, well, sounds good. They could literally open their phone. It's all in an app. They could access it, skim through that lecture, or just literally drag through the videos of me showing them all the modifications and go, okay, and then walk in and teach that class. Then later they can go home and watch the full thing. But it was more this idea that it was something they could have quite literally in their pocket versus a Dr. Google.
Yep.
It was like a physio in their pocket. So that really expanded and grew internationally. The more people that got, access to it were telling people, and it was a pretty cool experience for me to just know, as a physio, I've always wanted to help people, which I'm sure everyone says that. But essentially, I realised as a physio, your capacity is limited to per hour. If you're working in a traditional physio, you might see one person every half hour. You need to sleep. So you're not going to be able to physically help that many people as a physio. This was some way that I realised how many people I could help. Because if I could make you more confident in sciatica, if you throughout your whole Pilates career had 25 people with sciatica, I've spent 40 minutes teaching you about sciatica, but you've helped 25 people, which essentially for me, I was like, that's cool. That's 25 people that I didn't physically hands-on spend one-to-one time with, but they were helped because I helped one instructor. That has been rolling very nicely. It's been really fun to add and expand pretty much as the demand in my Instagram DMs. I pretty much create courses based on what the feedback is from my followers, which is that the best business model? I don't know, but at least I know what I'm providing is what people are wanting. So they're coming in going, the trend of strength, for example, right?
Yep.
Everyone's talking about strength. And they were all either commenting or in my DMs going, I'm just confused. Where does this sit in the Pilates scope? Everyone knows strength in the gym. You know, whether that's from personal experience or social media or sports teams. But they were like, where does this sit in the Pilates world? And they're like, from a science physio perspective, help. And then that was where the strength certification came from, because so many people were wanting the confidence, because we stand up in front of 5, 10, 15, 20 people. We want to be confident that what we're providing is science-backed. And that was where I feel a responsibility to step in and help, not to dictate and not to control, but just to help people enjoy their jobs more, because we have a great job. It's an epic job. It's a really cool job. It's hard at times, but it is a great job. We're not in an office. We're not stuck there like looking at the clock waiting for that 5 o'clock to go home. We're not sitting in meetings going, oh my gosh, like we're mingling with people, we're playing DJ with music. Like it's a cool job. But if people aren't confident, they start to dread it. And that is never an experience that I kind of wanted anyone to have. And then I guess I kind of got to the point where I was realizing that a lot of what I had created at Bodyform Education as a training company that was international was on the back end. So I was going, there is a problem here, because I'm fixing the fire that's been lit. All my courses are just pouring a little bit of water on this gasoline fire that's like blowing up, because everyone wants to be a Pilates instructor, which is great. I'm all for it. But I was like, wow, this is a big problem. What can I do about it? And I realized it was coming down to the training that these people are going through to become a Pilates instructor. Again, not because any of the training companies out there are bad. I've done 4 different courses myself with 4 different companies. I'm a nerd. Whatever. I just like learning. So I know what was personally as a physio missed. Personally as an instructor missed. Personally as a studio owner missed. And now I'm attempting to put out a fire that keeps getting bigger because more people are getting certified. And I was like, I have to stop it where it's starting. So that was where the entry level part of Bodyform Education has kind of grown from, was going, I need to fix the problems that I'm getting in my DMs, why my courses are selling. Like, that's great from a business owner perspective. I'm like, yeah, like, you know, like we're making money. But from a human morals perspective, I'm like, no, that's every single sign up is an instructor that's feeling stressed or anxious, that's feeling like their original certification didn't provide them with the confidence to do the job. And we all know as Pilates instructors, it's not cheap to get certified. And where does the responsibility kind of lie? It's hard to get all the content in this initial certification. It's also hard to get the content in when there's the quick courses out there.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, you're fighting against a global market where we are all about instant gratification. You know, Amazon, could not from a business perspective understand how they do it, but you order on Amazon and in the US it can be there in 2 hours. Instant gratification. So if you're telling someone who wants to be a Pilates instructor now that they have to wait 6 months because they have to go through the process, they're going to be like, thanks, see you later. I'm going to go to that online certification.
Yep.
So from it, that was something where I was like, how do I find this balance between the instant gratification and the quality that's ensuring that I'm not having those students finish at Bodyform Education, wherever they are in the world, and then have to come and do a CPD training with me. Unless they are 10 years down the track and they want a refresher. I don't want to see my students again, except for them killing it on, Instagram or killing it in a class and fun. Train the trainer, get me into your classes. But I don't want to see them in body form education again, is my goal. They should be provided in their initial certification with everything to be set up. There's no levels for me. I just don't understand the concept of level 1 reformer training, level 2 reformer training, level 3 reformer training. But how are we differentiating exercises by levels just to ensure that you have to pay me as a company again? If you think about it, like, do you break down your exercises in terms of levels? No, you just in your brain have an exercise library of options. That might be an exercise you teach a beginner, and that might be an exercise you would take an advanced client to. But if you were to create a company, I would probably doubt that you would break it into levels that require separate payments to get people. I just have the idea that there's a bare minimum standard that when you're paying for something, anatomy should be included. I personally find it very business-minded, let's say, when I look at a company and I see that they have anatomy as a separate course or certification that an individual has to purchase. Then when I see that they have a prenatal and a postnatal training as a separate, but the price of their reformer certification is the same price as mine, but they're saying, hey, if you want to be a good instructor, you have to pay separately for the anatomy one and separately for the pre and postnatal. You want to do strength? No, that's a separate cost. But their reformer training is the same price as mine, or the same price as Bill's. Like, it's an idea for me that there's a bare minimum standard that should be provided to someone who wants to become an instructor, whether you're mat, reformer, bar, studio equipment. You deserve, when you're paying for something, to get everything included. Not to go, cool, I finished level 1. All right, now let me save up another $2,000 before I can do level 2. And that was really something that everything from the injuries, it's something that needs to be this balance between how can we get new people coming into our industry confident in everything in one certification or qualification. And that for me was where the entry-level teacher training kind of came with body form education. To bring that back was really important and a nice mental challenge for me that I do believe I have succeeded in providing to people. I'm across the globe, which has been pretty cool, and having the opportunities to take on feedback. I'm a big person where if I get feedback, it's not a personal attack. It might take a bit of like okay, that was hard to absorb, but it's going, what can I take from that feedback that I can make my product and my certification better? So I had a student come to me the other day and she said, with your anatomy and biomechanics, I'm a very visual learner. You know how we have the exercise manual. Every company has an exercise book for the practicals. She goes, is there any chance you can create the same for the anatomy and biomechanics? And at first I was like, wanted to be like, babe, you have like 100 hours of like lecture content from me, all broken down. You've got all these like pieces of paper and everything that I provide you. And then I go, actually, no, do you know what? That's a good idea. Because people learn in different styles. Everything that I have in my head, I was like, well, I've provided them hundreds of hours of lectures. We talk about it in person. Like, what more could they want? And then it's just taking on board feedback, being adaptable, and then being able to apply it so that the next student that goes through body form education is like, oh, how epic's this? Look at this book. I'm a visual learner. I want to see something in front of me. Look at this manual that I got. I can understand it better. So when they're in the real world, they can apply it better is kind of where we're at. And we've been very fortunate since to open up a second body form studio location. So we are firing all cylinders.
Hell yeah. How do you make sure your clients, your new trainers, understand these concepts rather than just ticking and flicking boxes?
Yeah, I think it's a very important thing from me with the certifications that I went through personally as an instructor. I really think it provided me with a lot of value in that I watched how other people learned. So I did a course that was fully online. I then did a course that was fully in person. Long days. I then did a hybrid course, but it was too rote learning. So for me, I was like, if people don't understand concepts, you can't apply them in different situations. So we created with Bodyform Education, I wanted something as someone who only recently did get diagnosed with ADHD, not to be on the neurodivergent train, but it made a lot of sense as to why different learning styles just didn't work for me. And I'm very research science based. So I was looking at from the science research papers that are out there, what is our attention span? And the research is showing it's 20 to 30 minutes. After that, it decreases. So if we are doing a certification where we're working with people's bodies, you cannot have longer than that. So I wanted to create something that where these students could understand was if it was all in person, there's a few things that happen. A, attention span goes, which means you're not going to be listening properly, which means you're not going to be absorbing. Another thing with in-person is you don't have the ability to stop and rewind. So if you have slipped the train of thought to something else, you've realised you've missed an important thing that your master trainer has spoken, you can't rewind that. Another thing that we were finding was that in person, there is an element to which people aren't often confident to pop up their hand and ask a question. Doesn't matter how many times the master trainer is like, no question's a dumb question. If you're sitting in a room of 15 strangers, you're not going to be putting your hand up. Then we also realised it is a panic scribble because you want to try and get everything down as much as and quickly as you can. You're spending more time writing word for word than actually absorbing. So we created with Bodyform Education this hybrid learning where all of the theory content or the online learning is done online, broken down max 30-minute lectures because firstly, we have the ability to allow people to change careers. That's really an awesome opportunity with Pilates. You can start at any time. That means if they're changing careers, they might be full-time workers. They might be full-time family people. And if there's anything longer than 30 minutes, it's unachievable. I want people to be like, all right, lunch break, 30 minutes, pop my headphones in. I'm going to go for a walk, listen to it like a podcast, knowing that they can go and sit back down in 2 days' time, watch it, and write notes again. It was something where we realize from a science perspective, people need to listen to things or have it like experiences with an education component at least 2 or 3 times to actually understand it. So we wanted to create this platform where they have 8 months access to it. They can get their certificate with us, but they can still go back and revisit content. If they don't understand the pregnancy, they can go back and they can rewatch it. They can rewind it. They can replay it. Plus, they can literally watch it and then put in the comments their question. So we're watching our students commenting online, asking the questions that they would never ask in person, which means that I will jump on from a physio perspective. I'll answer them as the founder directly to the student. So it doesn't matter if the student is sitting in Sydney or in Malaysia or in literally Europe or the UK, they have access to me and they're asking the questions. Once they ask the questions, they're going to get the understanding a little bit better. So it also for us was a big thing that I don't know about your experience with your trainings, but when the few of the ones when I attended in person, you know, they're like, you need to have X amount of content done before you attend. There was always one person that didn't do that, right?
Yeah, usually me.
Yeah, probably. And probably was usually me. But it was that person that would then ask the questions in person of stuff that was covered online. And the rest of you sitting there like, but I did my learning. I put in the time, and now this one student is wasting all of our time recapping something that was done online. So for me, that was a really important part of allowing my students when they attend in person, they've done the content. So they're going to have rewatched it, done whatever they personally needed to absorb it, to understand it. So when they come in person, they're applying it to the exercises. They're not spending time recapping stuff that's covered online. If they have questions that are in application to the exercises, we want them to explore that in person. So they'd be like, okay, Kira-Leigh, I remember in the biomechanics you were talking about glute med versus glute min. Now we're going through a sideline series as the exercise that we're exploring. How could you bias one versus the other? Yes, that's what we want. We want them to have the knowledge so when they come in, we can explore those topics with them. Because I think a lot of the trainings were just, here is a squat and this is what you set up and you breathe and you cue and all right, move on to the next one, versus going, how do we dive into that from a functional movement perspective? So we cover from both the original exercises and the more classical exercise route all the way through to all the functional exercises. That the reality is if you're teaching fitness group classes, you're teaching the functional exercises.
Yeah.
So the certifications that are only covering the original or the more classical, I believe are doing a disservice to 50% of the instructors in the world.
Yep.
Then the ones that are just covering the functional exercises, I believe, are doing a disservice to the 50% that do teach classically. I don't want to pigeonhole people. I know that there is a big movement in our industry of what is and what isn't Pilates.
Yeah.
The Pilates police, as everyone coins them, but I think that that is because people try to pigeonhole their students into one type of Pilates, whereas we cover everything. So if a student comes to us, we will teach them from the original through to deadlifts, RDLs, push, pull, hinges, because we want them to then leave our certification knowing all of it and they can decide what they want to teach. Do they want to be a combo instructor? Bit of this, bit of that, versus going, great, I paid thousands of dollars for this course and now I only know this or I only know that. There shouldn't, again, it comes down to, for me, the bare minimum standard. If you're paying for an education, it should be all-inclusive. So that's where they get that understanding of the concepts because they absorb the knowledge properly online, but then they get to practically apply it in person under the guidance of a master trainer that can explore those topics together. It's more of a, I guess, like collaborative environment, the practical trainings at Body Form, versus for experience personally I had, it was students sit here, master trainer stands there, master trainer does the exercises, students and they write. And then I was like, thank you. See you at your assessment. Whereas I find that you walk into a Body Form like education training and everyone's talking, everyone's adding value, everyone's moving, exploring, applying and absorbing is really where, for me, that is a learning style that I would prefer to give out to everyone because that's what our job is. Essentially, our job is standing in front of people and exploring movement with people on whatever piece of equipment you choose, whatever style you choose. There's no right, there's no wrong. If the clients are moving, the clients are safe, the clients are happy, that's good. That's we're doing our job. But if there's too many people spending time fighting over what is and what isn't Pilates, does it make the world a better place? I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's just a big waste of time, that conversation.
Yeah.
How do you determine how many hours is required for people to really comprehend? Because I know what you're saying before is you've got these accelerated weekend courses. Yeah. You've got these online courses with no practical component. Yeah. Did you manage to find like a sweet spot in which you kind of get the most retention, the most value?
Yeah, we found that I personally have the courses, so each individual one, so if you're doing just your mat, just your reformer, they sit at 250 hours totaled. So they end up with probably about 200 hours, give or take, online learning. That is the ability for them to go start to finish all the way through. Sounds like a lot, but when you break it down, it is very achievable and it can be revisited. And that for me is where that is always going to be my most important part to it. Then we have our practical days in person, which are purely the exercises. That is applying the knowledge they've learnt into the in-person. My big thing is that real world experience, you can't miss it. Yep. You really can't miss it. So we have the observation hours is, I really believe, really important. And that is, and I always say to our students, you know, you have a personal style as a person. You like X instructor for whatever reason. You dislike Y instructor for whatever reason. But when you are an instructor, you need to go and you need to watch both. Sit in that room, watch, listen, observe. And they're like, oh, but I don't like her class. I'm like, okay, you as a client don't like her class, but you're not a client now. You are an instructor. That is a good instructor for what reason? Go and sit, watch and learn. Just because you as a client don't like her style, maybe she's too stretchy and flowy for you and you prefer a stronger class, but it doesn't mean she's not a good teacher. Like, I want my students to go to I literally say, the instructors you avoid at your studio, go to them. Sit there and write notes. How do they set up that exercise? Just because you don't like the exercise doesn't mean they're not good at setting it up. How do they control the room? Where are they going? Watch. Are they in front of their clients when they set up exercises? Watch them as they go from a standing series to a lying series facing the other way. Watch as the instructor should move across the room so that when she starts to set up, she's already there because she knows her program. Watch as they turn the music up, turn the music down. Watch as they modify. That observation is what I always see is trying to be the biggest cop-out from the students. They're like, but can't I just do the class? I'm like, no. You need to sit. When you're doing the class, you're looking at, when you're doing the class, you're looking at the ceiling or you're looking at the back of the neighbour in front of you. That is, I would always say, the big part where they learn the most because they want to just do the class. I'm like, no. So we have that as like a separate component where they actually have to go and observe. They got to hit their observation hours for that reason. Then they have the self-mastery hours, which for every person doing their Pilates course, easy, right? If you're normally doing your Pilates certifications because you've been attending Pilates, then the practice teaching. So that is you practicing family, friends, whoever, random person on the street. That is where they learn. I want them to learn with their close people where they're not going to necessarily be, well, you will be nervous, but you're not, there's no risk involved. And you can muck up the setup. You can muck up the tactile cue and have your, boyfriend be like, oh, that was weird, don't touch me like that. Or, you can have your dad who's never done Pilates and you're trying to set him up into a legs in straps and it's chaos. I want that to happen for my students because the reality is that's who we see in the studio. Just not your dad, it's Joe from the butcher. But you need to learn in a safe environment and a supportive environment how to handle those situations, what cues do and don't work. Because there's not a lot of opportunity once you get your certificate for that in the real world. I say to our students, you get one first impression with the studio owner and with the client. You need to make sure that when you get to that opportunity to have that first impression, it's bloody good. And a lot of the trainings miss that component and they miss a feedback component. So we make our students do 2 written submissions of class planning plus 2 practical videos. We want to watch them teach. And we also make them have in the written and in the practical, they have to write down modifications for each exercise that they've programmed. If there was an injured person with a shoulder injury and an injured person with a back injury and a 3rd trimester pregnant client. And a lot of students are like, oh, it's so much. And I'm like, but you're about to walk into a room of 15 people. I'll guarantee you all the money in the world, you will not get a class where everybody doesn't have something going on. Someone's going to have a shoulder thing. Someone's going to have a knee thing. Someone's going to be pregnant. You need to pre-plan. The instructors that we see as experienced instructors or studio owners or just clients, when we walk into a class, the ones that panic and just change their whole lesson plan are unprepared. So if I set my students up knowing that this is what you really should be doing every time you class plan. Cool, you want to do a standing standing split series? Awesome. But what if there's a person with a back injury? What are you going to do? Okay, the pregnant person, is she going to be able to do that? Is that going to feel comfortable for her? If you can think about that when you're writing your class plan, when you go to teach, once you're certified, you are not going to be that instructor that goes, okay, I'll just lie down and we'll do sideline. No. You need to know that if you are prepared and you plan, you are going to be the instructor that's going to modify like that on the fly. Plus, obviously, in our training, we teach our students every single exercise. The 3 most common injuries or complaints that we get as instructors. We don't want them to be getting put on the burner in the real world where they teach a squat and they have their first client that goes, I can't do a squat. Because we know how they are, right? If you have a client that's in pain or discomfort, they're very abrupt and rude when they tell, like, I can't do squats. Yeah. And I remember my first one, I was like, okay. I was like, and it's just because of their attitude. Normally they come very like, I can't do squats. So we really want to make sure that for every single exercise we teach our students, we cover the 3 most common complaints they're going to get. Mm-hmm. So for squat, we're going to go, okay, knees, always, hip, back pain. Do not just go sideline series. We literally cover exactly how they can modify, keeping the client moving, facing the same direction as the rest of the class, same movement pattern if possible, same springs, same muscle groups.
Yep.
Every single exercise. Same for pregnancies. I'm a women's health physio. I'm so sick of the pregnant people like can't exercise or that's dangerous and this fear mongering around pregnancy. They are literally stronger than the instructor that's standing in front of them teaching them that class at that point. Like that's an incredible part of what a woman can do. And unless they are experiencing pathology because of the pregnancy, whether it's sciatica or pelvic pain, they can keep moving. It's not something that you just go, oh, you're injured or you're damaged. But a lot of the trainings personally that I experienced were very fear-mongering, black and white. It was a list of don'ts. And that list of don'ts was way longer than the list of do's. And from a scientific perspective, it was so unnecessary. But I understand if they don't have someone in their structure that is a health professional or a women's health physio, they're at a bit of a liability risk for kind of spreading information that they might not know is true. So that is where I really feel that for me, that's the assurance that these students are walking out going, I can actually manage anything and anyone that walks into my class. Because that was a gap that I saw well back when I started with the free posting on Instagram and with the CPD workshops. So it ends up being like these 2 pathways where I never want to see any of my now body form education, mat, reformer students ever in my other CPD pathway. That's there to support the instructors that have done their qualification already that need that gap of knowledge filled. Whereas I will fear I have failed my job if any of my body form education students need any of my CPD trainings because then I haven't done the right. Like I want them to be pushed and never to be seen again.
Where does this really strong philosophy you have come from? Because you mentioned you did 4 different courses.
Yeah.
But it's very rare. Obviously, I speak to different studio owners and educators and founders of education companies fairly frequently.
Yeah.
But it's very rare that someone has such a strong feeling about how things should be. Yeah.
I think for me, it is this idea that our industry as a whole is booming. So that is a fantastic opportunity, but it needs to be taken a bit more carefully. And I think that there's a lot of people that are, whether it's social media or whether it's just this idea that everyone's getting much more focused on their health. I'm not sure where this Pilates boom has come from, but it is, and we're all on the train. But there's a responsibility that I believe from a physio perspective, we are managing people's bodies. And I really think that if I went and did a 4-year degree, how the hell are these people doing like a 20-hour course and then getting put in front of 15 people? And mat Pilates, there is an element to which I think it's safer for large groups. Whereas reformer, with the springs, you are essentially loading clients up. That is either going to be an assistive load or a resisted load. And either one has the opportunity for people to be in a vulnerable position that can cause injuries. And that, for me, is such an idea of I have seen it go the wrong way. And that has purely come down to an incompetence of the instructor that was taking that class. And there's no other way to put it. There's no nice way. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I was a client in the class. I watched what happened. I was like, well, that's on you. Like, that was because you didn't know, care. I don't know what the reason was, but you should have managed that. And I guess for me, that's where it's like, I think that, I don't know, maybe I feel a level of responsibility as someone that sits both in the medical world and in this fitness industry. If we keep opening ourselves up to risks of people getting injured, I'm not talking about them tripping over a box like that. They could trip over the curb. You know, I trip over on flat surfaces all the time. But I'm talking about a load-based injury or a lack of care for technique or a lack of care for taking the time to set an exercise up properly. Is that because they don't know how to, or is that because they're tired? Or is that because they're being lazy? That is something we can't control, but ensuring that the education that's coming to these new instructors is what I can control. And it's something that, from a level of which I love my job, the people that I have been dealing with in the CPD, continuing professional development stream, don't love their jobs. And that makes me very sad, because we do have a great job. They're stressed, they're anxious, they're dreading going to classes if they know that their regular Jill is now pregnant. That's 9 months of dreading going because one of your regulars on 9 a.m. on a Tuesday is pregnant, and she's going to continue to be pregnant for 9 months. And they're like, I'm stressed every single Tuesday. I'm like, that is not good. Yeah. And it's something that, I don't know, I have the opportunity and the education and the degree to help ensure that that anxiety level of instructors is minimized. Because if they're not stressed, they're going to do a better job. If they're going to do a better job, the clients have a better time. And then that just helps to boost our industry in a positive light versus the stories that we're hearing of, I got injured at Pilates. You know, personally for me, in my physical studios, we get a lot of GP referrals, and sometimes they'll sit down with me for the physio consult before their privates or semi-privates, and they're like, I'm only here because my GP sent me. I hate Pilates. I'm like, what? I'm like, sorry, what do you mean? They're like, I went to Pilates and I got injured. And I'm like, damn. And that is continually coming through when I'm working with my patients in the studio and in the clinic. And I'm one person. How many, and I'm on the Northern Beaches, so how many other people in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia, the world are having those experiences? And it's going to start to decline our industry, essentially. And that is a level, if I can help fix a tiny part of it, even if it's 1%, that, I don't know, maybe it's a big task, but I feel a level of responsibility to at least try. And it's not to say that the other education companies don't have that same thought process, right? But there is an element where I'm on the line. I have put myself as the face of my brand and put myself as the face of my education company. I still work on the ground. I'm seeing clients, I'm seeing studio owners, I know their complaints, I know what they are sick of. They are sick of these students who get their certificate, come to them like, I'm a Pilates instructor. They can't class plan, they can't modify, they can't layer, they can't cue. I hear it from the studio owners. I hear it from the instructors that complain that they paid thousands of dollars and they don't know how to class plan, they're stressed. So I'm hearing it from every single level in the industry. And I'm the one on the ground. I'm still teaching classes. And not a lot of other education company owners can say that. And maybe that's why I feel a level of responsibility, because I'm hitting every level from the clients to the students who are in my DMs while they're doing their training. I got one yesterday. I'm literally teaching my first class tomorrow and I'm so scared because I don't even know how to layer an exercise. I was like, what? Then I'm getting the studio owners in my ear when I go and upskill their staff. They're paying me. They're flying me over the world. They pay me to go. They pay for my flights. That is how bad it's gotten. So then, you know, it's every level of our industry that I hear feedback that maybe that's the responsibility that I feel. But hey, if I can make it 1% better, then I'll die happy. I don't think I can change the world, but if I can make it a little bit better, that's, I guess, where I have that strong kind of passion for that feeling, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting when you said that you're in a position where you're still on the ground, because I feel like a lot of the people that I've found are definitely far removed from that. So maybe, you know, when they first started their education companies, they were closer.
Yeah.
And but maybe as that distance has increased over time, then their awareness of what the reality is there. I know that it's irrespective of who comes in to become an instructor at my studio, they're always going to require a significant onboarding process, because whatever they've learned is not going to work. So to have an education company that you could literally just put into the environment and would work straight away, I mean, that's really what it's about. So if that's something that you're achieving, then that's pretty awesome, because that's going to solve a lot of problems for people. Because I also find it weird, though, that people wouldn't have an onboarding process for their own studio, because it's a lot of stress, because you're expecting someone to come in and teach who has no idea what your standards are, what your spring levels are, what exercise names are. It's like, how do you expect them to be successful without any kind of guide, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of which I will put down to, I guess, the order of my career where I was prior to starting that entry-level part of body form education. I had done workshops at over 86 studios across the world. That is 86 studio owners that I've interacted with just on a workshop level, let alone the ones in the DMs, let alone the ones that I worked for, or let alone just friendly studio owners that you're all in it together. It's a very lonely job. And the common complaints were the same. And it came down to hearing from every level. As I said, you know, I have the students that contact me stressed. I hear their feedback. I hear their concerns. I then have the studio owners that complain to me about their issues with the current quality of trainings that were coming out. And so it was kind of like, well, I can fix, if I can, attempt to fix the student level issues plus the studio level issues. That is one epic training. And then if I can fix from my physio brain going like the standards of, you know, the pre and postnatal, the injuries, the biomechanics, that pulling from all my levels creates this like bulletproof, you know, education company where I hope it comes out that everybody's happy. Me as a physio is going to be happy because I know they know how to modify for injuries. I know that the GP has a client with back pain and goes, oh, go and do Pilates, not even looking at the client is an 80-year-old. And the client's going to go home and Google Pilates studios near me, and it's going to be a fitness studio that has paid for Google ads that's sitting at the top, and it's like, come trial 5 classes for $30. And the 80-year-old's going to walk into that. That's the reality that we're living with. It's not the right place for her. She won't know, but the instructor she's going to doesn't know what to do. So I guess the studio owners were more getting that level of frustration with these instructors coming to them requiring more than their onboarding. I totally agree. I have an onboarding process. I don't just bring someone on board. You have to do in line with the Bodyform studio brand, same way you would have with your studio. But our pitch to studio owners is, we don't have time. I know. I own 2 studios. Time is not a thing that we have to spend weeks training someone who is certified in how to write a class. If you have a niche structure of how you like your classes run in your studio, that's different. But all you're doing them is just saying, hey, Jill, you're going to go X, Y, Z, and that's how we teach at my studio. You are not teaching them how to layer an exercise. If there is a niche that makes your studio you, then 100% that's an onboarding thing, but it should be quick. Could be like an hour conversation. These studio owners were coming to me saying they're spending weeks training. That is not time we have. And then do you know what happens? These instructors, the next offer comes up and then they leave. And you've just spent weeks with someone who you were like, okay, I'm willing to invest my time into you as a new instructor to get you up to scratch with, honestly, the industry standard, but then they leave. So it was almost like my pitch is always to studio owners going, I will give you an instructor from Bodyform Education that you do not have to retrain. You can onboard them, but you're not retraining them. You are not teaching them how to modify. You are not teaching them how to cue. You are not teaching them how to write a bloody class plan. Like, that is our job. That is every single day. That's our job. But if studio owners are saying that's what they're doing. They are literally teaching people with pieces of paper that says they're a Pilates instructor how to write a class or how to layer an exercise. I don't really know what else our job is except for that. And if you've been given a piece of paper that says you're a Pilates instructor and you can't do that, that's not on the student, to be honest. That comes back to who gave you that piece of paper. And for me, we say to our students, I don't care if you pay me, you're not guaranteed a certificate. I'm very upfront with the students. It's online. All our master trainers and our host locations across the world, the first conversation we have when I onboard them is, are you comfortable saying no to someone? And they're like, what? I'm like, are you comfortable failing someone? They're like, what do you mean? I said, well, I can tell you that when I receive a resume, there are companies that I will not hire from. I've been told by all of those studio owners they have too much work. It's not the person. It's too much work for the studio owner to have to retrain from certain brands. My brand will not ever be on that list because I will not give you a certificate if you are not good enough. And that's not to be cocky and that's not to be rude, but you are working with people's bodies. There is a level of responsibility. I will always come back to that. That is a human body in front of you. If it's not safe for you to be an instructor, doesn't matter what you paid. I can go and be a surgeon. I can go and pay Sydney University, say, I want to be a surgeon. They're going to be like, okay, let's see if you can do it. They don't give you a degree. No one does that. Why are our education companies doing that?
Wow, that's such a crazy thing to think about, actually.
Because it is a bit true.
Yeah.
And we don't expect that from university. Why are we expecting that from our Pilates education companies, and why are they essentially falling for it? We are very supportive of our students to say, we say every assessment, they get 3 resubmissions. Our feedback is extensive. So we will say in this submission, this is what was incorrect. We then say why it was incorrect. We then tell them how to fix it for this submission in order for it to be passed. But then we tell them what they need to do every single class plan to avoid this happening in other circumstances. Because it's not just good enough to say, you cued that squat wrong and leave it. Because they're going to go and do those same cueing errors for a lunge or for a chest press. They need to know what was incorrect in this submission, how to fix it, and then we need to take that feedback and actually educate them going forward. What do you need to watch out for that you could do this similar mistake every single other time? Then even if they get to the 3 resubmissions, it's not like you're out of the course. They just have to pay for a one-to-one session with their master trainer to sit down with them, and maybe it just needs to be in person. Maybe they just are a more visual learner. But we will continue to work with the student for as long as it takes until they either go, look, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I just really like going to classes. Maybe I'm not meant to be an instructor. And we go, are you sure? We will continue to work with our students, but we are not going to just give them a certificate. Sometimes people aren't meant to be instructors.
Yeah.
I could not stand up and go and bloody play AFL, but you don't see me having a cry about that. And it's the same way. Sometimes you just need to have that experience to go, that's not for me. I always thought I was going to be a sports physio. Hand on heart. I was a gymnast, of course, that's made sense in my brain. Hand on heart, thought that was going to be me. Had an apprentice experience, hated it. It was awful. I was like, this is terrible. I'm terrible at this. I don't like doing this. And I was okay to walk away. Just because it's a goal or a vision, it doesn't mean that you're guaranteed that that's the pathway. And if they want to come back and they want to revisit it later, we're always going to welcome them with open arms. But I'm not just going to give you a certificate because I'm too scared to have the conversation with you of what needs improvement. Because there are companies that You know, maybe they just get bigger and bigger and bigger and maybe it gets lost and people fall through the cracks. But that person that you just gave the certificate, because who knows? It's just easier sometimes, right? But that person's now out in the real world taking 15 people every hour, 20 hours a week. That's a lot of risk. And I'm not going to put my brand to that. I will work with them and I will help them, and all of our master trainers at Bodyform will, but we're not guaranteeing anyone a certificate because, again, it's a responsibility. We are working with people's bodies. If we were just typing up code for images or lights, like, cool, that's not going to potentially change someone's life if you do it incorrectly. Not to say you can paralyze a person by doing something incorrectly, but if there is an opportunity for risk, we do need to take it a little bit more seriously than just being like, I'm a Pilates instructor, like I teach Pilates. It is a little bit more serious than that. And somebody somewhere has to start to take a bit of responsibility for that. And if that is me, then I'm happy and I'm honoured to at least attempt it.
I like it. When you say master trainers, so do you have a structure within your company where are they located in the studios that you go to do the workshops in, or how do the...
So we have locations. For me, the big thing is that the in-person training is the part that's invaluable. And the in-person training of Bodyform needs to be accessible. Otherwise, people will go for alternative options, right? They'll do the online trainings, which aren't bad, but there needs to be an increased quality control in the online training realm. So if we have an opportunity to have locations closer to people, that's my goal. So what we've done with Bodyform Education is there are studios that we have located all across the world. So we have, at this point now, 22 on-person location sites across the globe. So we are Sweden, we have Cape Town, Joburg, like Jakarta, Sri Lanka, all through the US, through Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Bali. It's important for me to have this site that is closer to people. But I can't be everywhere as much as I would like to. I can't be everywhere. And I train the trainers who are studio owners because what do they know? They know the problems. They are managing staff. They know the issues that the instructors are having from the gaps in their education, plus they know what the clients, again, it's the points of contact, how many levels of our industry are these people touching. Very important for me. I only work with studio owners. The locations are always studio owners because of the contact points. They are a Pilates instructor themselves, very important for me, obviously. They have clients. They hear the client complaints. They also have staff, so they hear the instructor issues and what they need more training in. So when they can go and teach my Bodyform students, they're taking all those touch points and adding that as extra value to the training platform that I have. So when they're working with the students, they are going, yes, this is the course outline, this is what we're going to teach you, but they then add the touch points that they know. Because for me, it's not, I'm not the best, absolutely not in any shape or form. Always have things to learn, always have things to adjust. I want them to learn from as many people as possible in our industry. So those master trainers are trained by me in our method, making sure that everyone's aligned with the injury modifications, the pregnancy modifications, the postnatal modifications, and the programming. That is very important. That is a non-negotiable. That is standard quality. So you can go to any training anywhere in the world of ours, same quality. But you get the bonus of that master trainer's knowledge, their experience, their background, their exposure, their touch points in our industry. So the standard is the same from the education perspective, but the golden nuggets are what they get from the master trainers. So they have had different experiences than I've had. So they get access to, essentially, it's like a bonus kind of like international world of all of these master trainers that are providing their experience, their mistakes. That's where we learn from. And they get to have that connection with the student. So they're trained under me to deliver the same course quality, but then you get the little golden nuggets of whoever your master trainer is. And essentially, like, the students, if they are a client you want to be trained. Like if you're in a studio and your studio owner is a master trainer, there's a reason you love going to that studio. So to get trained by that person that probably inspired you to become a Pilates instructor in the first place, that's a pretty cool thing. And it's a touch point again afterwards. You know, they're like, hey, even if it leads to jobs, you know, sometimes that does happen, and that's cool for everyone. That's cool for the master trainers to know, hey, I'm not spending time retraining this instructor because I trained her through Bodyform training on site in Switzerland. And then again, it's just a little niche onboardings. So it's just a way to have that element of being able to be quality controlled in all of our locations across the globe, but allowing for students to have that in-person experience that honestly makes the biggest difference. Obviously, it's not achievable for everyone. Some people live far away, but if we can get that for me is really important.
So they're getting most of their in-person training with the master trainer?
Yeah. So I really I'm a big people person. I love to be in person with people. So I will make an effort to ensure that I'm at as many of the trainings as physically possible. So like this year, I'm flying all over the shop to be in person to run them with the master trainer. And so every location is 3 master trainers that I train personally per location. And I like to be in person. It's fun.
Yeah.
The students are like, woo, I got 4 master trainers and the founder on site. So if it's possible, I like to be on site, not because I don't trust them, but because everyone gets a better experience.
Yeah.
More touch points. The students can have, you know, it ends up being like a 3-to-1 per master trainer if there's 4 of us there on site. So that in-person practical component is with the master trainer of their region, and then I attend based on location and timing as many as I can because I love that. Being with the students is just that I can sit behind a laptop and run this company in an ivory tower like a lot of other education, you know, companies do. But that's not me. I'm an on-ground, and I'll put my face and my brand as one. Like I will put my reputation on the line and be in person. And if your email doesn't get answered because I'm in person with students, well, that's just sad for you. Like the students have had that day of my attention and time, and that's more valuable than to be on the emails and on my poor accountant.
Yeah.
Love her, but I don't get back to her so quickly. And hey, I prefer to be with the people, which is more important to make that difference than to be an admin laptop junkie and sitting at home and just running it from an admin perspective. I do feel if I can be on the same ground as everyone, that makes a difference. Everyone's seen on the same level. I don't care that I founded it. I don't see myself any higher than a master trainer. I also don't see myself any higher than a student. The reality is that student has experience that they can actually, you know, I can learn from that. Whether that's them being a client in a class and saying, hey, well, I had an instructor teach it this way and it didn't land with me because that's something I can learn from. So there's no hierarchy, ivory tower. Being on the ground, being the same level as everyone is really always important for me personally. And hey, everyone does things their own way, but that's a very big part of how I want the company to grow and structured so that there is no upwards chain. We all learn, we all challenge each other because everyone has different backgrounds. And if you're closed off to other people's, I guess, opinions or education, I just believe you're only doing yourself a disservice. It's a conversation. It's not a fight. It's not an argument. It's a conversation. And it's exploring and it's questioning. And hey, to be honest, we could all do with a bit more of that in our lives, you know? But,
you want to stay open to new information.
Yeah.
The journey you've taken from starting off first being an instructor to now having your own education company is quite a huge trajectory to take. Is there any advice you'd give to someone maybe who's an instructor right now who would love to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I think for me, it kind of comes down to open-mindedness. I think it's about never getting too comfortable in your own routine. I think as instructors, we find we get into habits, whether that's habits of cueing or habits of programming or habits of instructing classes. And I think having the idea, learn from as many people as you can. Take the time to go outside of your suburb. Go to that class when you're on holiday in Switzerland. Hey, you might learn something. Or take another instructor's class at a studio that's an hour away from you and then challenge yourself. Okay, she programmed this way. Let me try for my classes this week to program a little bit differently. Because I think that if we get stuck in routine, that just is what pulls you back. And I think that the learning and experience and being open to feedback is something that always will push you further in life in any industry. I think the more experience you can have with different studios as well, if you want into like the studio owner path, for me, I did work for a stupid amount of studios in Sydney. But all those 22 studios that I worked at, you'd see what works, you see what don't. You're on the ground as an instructor. You have the best access to the clients. You hear their complaints. Man, we hear everything sometimes as instructors. You're like, anyway, send an email because that is not on my page. Like, I am just a contractor. I do not have control over that. But learn. Remember, what did that client not like? Okay, if I'm going to go and open a studio, you need to have experience with the clients, hear their complaints, hear what they love about studios. It just makes that brand that you open down the line better. Be in as many rooms with different owners to know from an instructor to the management level, what bloody sucks? What do you hate? Okay, well, I know when I go to open my studio from a owner perspective, I'm not going to treat my staff like that. But then you also know from the clients what the clients like as an owner. Then if you want to go that education pathway, I think that, as we were speaking about a bit earlier, have a niche, in terms of what is your passion, and focus on building and providing free social media. Like, I can't praise it and hate it at the same time high enough. I think that if you can find your area that serves you, what ignites your passion, that's where people do really well in our industry. Yours was strength, followed you forever, right? Like, for me, mine will always be the physio side, the injuries, the modifications of pregnancy. There's so many options. There's some amazing instructors that are just like full blown all about stretching and how to use the reformer for mobility. Don't think that your niche is lame, is what I say. Like, if you're passionate about it and the service that you're providing or the content you're providing, that passion actually like oozes through. And it does seem 2D on social media, but you can tell the people that are very passionate about what they're providing. And it's saying yes to the opportunities. Always say yes, within reason, of course. Like, if you're stretched too thin, obviously you need to put yourself first, but you never know where pathways are going to end up. As we said, 4 years ago, you came to my class in Sydney and look at where we are today.
Yeah.
Had 4 years ago, I'd been like, oh my God, like, no, he's too cool and like, too good of an instructor and I'm too scared, and I pulled a sickie. Did consider it. I was very nervous. Then we wouldn't have the opportunity to connect then. And then maybe this would never have happened. So you might not see, I guess, the fruition of saying yes to things or opening yourself to experiences immediately. But wow, you'll really look back and go, there's dots connected everywhere. Sounds very conspiracy theory, but there are dots. Our industry is smaller than you think, and saying yes to those opportunities might, in 2 years' time, lead to a change in direction of your career upwards. And it's a cool thing to think about.
You seem like incredibly switched on when it comes to business.
Yeah.
Where's that come from?
I have both my parents run their own companies. Yep. My dad juggles 4 or 5 different ones, so similar style to me. I think there is an element to which I like to take full ownership for my responsibility and my choices and mistakes. And I sometimes found, honestly, as an employee or as a contractor, frustrating frustrated in systems that were outdated, frustrated in an inability for people to move forward, adjust, adapt, update, and even just not take ownership. You know, if there were people higher than me in any, you know, even from when I was in high school working in a cafe, if they weren't taking responsibility for their actions, that just used to infuriate me. And running a business, you live, die, and breathe by your actions, good, bad, and everything in between. And I will always back myself for whatever I have made at that point in time. And then I will deal with the consequences of them. If it was a good mistake, well, big cheers to that. If it was a bad mistake, you knuckle down, you suck it up, and you deal with it and you fix it. And it's just taking that level of ownership where control. I'm a control freak, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's why I like business. You know, you wear the hats, you control, and you have to make the choices at that time to push yourself forward. And it's not waiting on other people. And maybe, do you know what? Maybe that's the ADHD brain as well. Maybe it's the dopamine hit of making a good choice and the ability to adapt when you make a bad one. But I think that it's something to consider when going into business, that it does all fall on you. And it's, are you actually prepared for that? Because I got to tell you, I've cried more times than I can count. The bank has gone down and up and down and up. And if you need consistency and you need validation externally, don't open a business. Don't open a studio. Don't do it. Because it's a all the time.
Yeah.
If you don't have a strong vision, if you're not committed to yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, it's not the way to go. And that's okay. I look at some other people's jobs and I go, that is hell. And they look at mine and they're like, that's hell. My own partner's like, what the hell do you do for work? And I go, what do you do? Because I wouldn't want to do yours either. But hey, we both love our jobs and we come home happy. So it's not to say that I think a lot of pressure from instructors is to think that next pathway is only a studio. It's okay that you don't want to do it. Don't feel that pressure. I hear it all the time. It feels like the next logical step. But if that makes you feel stressed, don't do it. Hey, go to your studio owner that you have a good relationship and say, I would love to take some more responsibility. What opportunities do you have in your studio for me? You don't have to go and own a studio. You can ask the studio owner to say, hey, what can I maybe take off your plate? Or what room is there to be a master trainer of that studio or a head trainer of that studio? Or ask for opportunities where you are now. You don't have to take that step to running a business because it is hard and it's not for everyone. And I would rather people take a little bit of time to think about it than to go and have a terrible experience with it. Make sure you're really passionate about it and then, hey, double down. And there will be people around you, they'll say you're crazy, but find the ones that are crazy with you and they'll push you alongside. Like all my friends, you know, have businesses in different fields and we're all as psycho as each other. We'll all push each other up. But there's friends that have dropped off because that wasn't how they were. And that's okay. Don't dislike them or love them any less. But if I need hyped up business advice because I'm having a mental breakdown, that's not the friend I'm going to pick up the phone to. There's other friends that I will, you know, it's build that community around you if you're going to go into business is really the important thing.
Well, full credit to you, Kira-Leigh. You're doing absolutely incredible. I'm really impressed. And I'm taking a lot of inspiration from what you're doing today too.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming out. And,
thank you for having me. Thank you. Hope everyone gets a little bit of something from that and can take it into their own lives in any shape or form.